Well, what a week. It's fair to say we've never seen anything like it in Canberra before. It was dominated by one issue, or should we say one man.
If you're good at your job, you'll get a job, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, that's right. Just when we thought Scott Morrison was destined to spend the rest of his political life quietly passing time on the backbench, the former PM came roaring back into the news with the revelation he had been appointed to a bunch of additional ministries by himself.
40 or 50 years watching politics, you think you've seen it all, and then something as weird and as wacky as this comes along.
On Monday, it was reported Morrison had sworn himself into the health and finance portfolios during the beginning of the pandemic. Seems fine. The former health minister, Greg Hunt, was told what was going on, but finance minister Matthias Cormann had no idea.
He did not tell his own finance minister that he was taking this action.
We also learned that Morrison made himself a second resource minister and actually used those powers to block a gas licence off the coast of New South Wales ahead of the election.
Certainly found it unusual. It's clearly something I was concerned about, as you would expect.
In an interview on Tuesday, Scott Morrison was asked if there were any other portfolios that he'd secretly sworn himself into.
Not to my recollection, Ben. I'm pursuing that, but not to my recollection. There were a number that were considered at the time for safeguard reasons, but I don't recall any others being actioned.
Good morning.
But hours later, Prime Minister Anthony Albanese revealed Morrison had been sworn into Home Affairs and Treasury, as well as the other three. Oh, those two little portfolios. Must have just tucked them in the back of the ministry cupboard and forgotten all about them. Easy done.
The question on everyone's lips in Canberra today was, why on earth would you go on radio and insist that you had only held a couple of extra jobs?
If you have a go, you get a go.
The alternative explanation is that the former Prime Minister just didn't remember being appointed Treasurer of the Commonwealth of Australia.
By Wednesday, Morrison could not only recall all of the ministries he'd sworn himself into, he spent an hour telling us why, in great detail, it had all been necessary.
I only did it particularly in portfolios of significant areas of importance, i.e. Treasury and Home Affairs, because they were unilateral decision-making powers of ministers. Look, you've asked the question.
The other major inconsistency in Morrison's story was around why he kept it all secret, even from his own ministers.
I cannot conceive of the mindset that has created this.
In one of his first answers, Morrison said he'd told his health minister, Greg Hunt, and thought his finance minister, Matthias Cormann, had also been told, and it was a mistake he wasn't. But the others?
The former Home Affairs Minister, Karen Andrews, called for Scott Morrison to resign from Parliament.
The Australian people were betrayed.
Many of Morrison's former colleagues initially tried to play it down.
I think there's a number of people in your own party who are calling on Scott Morrison to resign from Parliament. Should he at least do that?
No, I don't think he should do that. Apart from anything else, it's not in the interest of the Liberal Party to have a by-election at the moment.
There are bigger issues that, frankly, the families of Australia are dealing with at the moment.
But as the week went on, the heat intensified.
These arrangements essentially breached the coalition agreement. I mean, it showed complete disrespect for the second party of government, that's the National Party.
It was the wrong thing to do, and I can understand why many of my colleagues are upset and aggrieved and why people are angry about that.
So why did Morrison do it? Well, he said it was all about the pandemic.
The worst crisis since the Second World War.
And that may explain the first two ministries he was secretly sworn into in 2020. But it doesn't explain why he decided to add Treasury and Home Affairs in 2021 to his list of powers, given the nation had a much bigger handle on what to expect from the pandemic. It also doesn't explain why he never told Josh Frydenberg.
He's not happy, is he?
Well, I've had a wonderful conversation with Josh. We had one yesterday afternoon.
Who was reportedly furious to discover his bestie, the man he roomed with at the lodge, eating curries and watching, of all things, Yes Minister, had also been chilling in his portfolio.
In politics, you have to learn to say things with tact and finesse, you burp.
But you have to understand, it's our fault Morrison needed these powers.
That I, as Prime Minister, was responsible pretty much for every single thing that was going on. Every drop of rain, every strain of the virus.
The legality, implications for democracy, the role of the Governor-General are all things that will come out in the future. As to whether or not Morrison will resign, well, he had a pretty strong answer for that.
Will you resign over this?
Well, of course not.